Greetings from Stockholm and the National Board of Trade Sweden. My name is HEIDI Lund, and I would like to start by thanking ILAC for the kind invitation and opportunity to contribute at this important event. I naturally wish you all a nice and compliant World Accreditation Day. My intervention today will be based on a recent analysis focusing on digital regulation. In February, the National Board of Trade Sweden published a report on innovation, AI, technical regulation and trade. So what is this analysis about? Well, the objective of the analysis is to highlight in which manner the utilization of technologies and innovations such as AI on one hand and digital vulnerabilities, especially cyber vulnerabilities on the other, affect the properties of industrial goods and how this should be considered in technical regulation. In other words, the analysis answers the question whether digital innovation changes the way in which we should regulate industrial goods. So why did the National Board of Trade Sweden prepare this analysis? Well, our earlier study from 2018, focusing on the trade effects of cybersecurity regulation, indicated that regulation of digital product properties presents many uncertainties with respect of really reaching the set regulatory objectives. Also, our findings show that efficient regulatory policy making becomes burdensome when different policy areas, such as national security and trade policy, do not speak the same language. So is this then an important question for trade policy? Well, if regulations are not adapted to technical innovation, companies will face uncertainty. And there is also a risk for regulatory fragmentation and barriers if different markets regulate digital properties in different manners. As a result, we saw that there is really a need to investigate whether there are relevant digital frameworks for digital innovations such as AI. Those of you who know the analysis of National Board of Trade might wonder, why didn't you just prepare an analysis of digital trade barriers? Well, that would really require clear regulatory frameworks, and unfortunately we are not there yet. Furthermore, like the analysis will demonstrate, the conditions for digital regulations are different from what we are used to. So what is then so special about products with embedded digital technologies that we really have to question our current regulatory model and technique? Well, in contrast to traditional goods, the properties of digital products change throughout their life cycles, making both regulation and standardization more difficult. Digital products are also less tangible than traditional products, which means that product properties are difficult to follow and control, both for companies themselves and for regulators. And as I mentioned, regulations and standards are still under development. One of the study's underlying question is there anyone who has really insight in and is taking responsibility of the digital market? If neither regulations nor market surveillance are in place, one can ask whether the digital market is left to the invisible hand, probably to the self-regulation of companies combined with some, but not all, embracing regulation. So how did we at the board approach the question? Well, instead of analyzing various digital regulatory frameworks and proposals, we used a bottom-up approach. We investigated how AI is used in industry and how business see that their innovation is covered by legislation. Also, how the cyber dimension affects compliance. For the case studies, we selected sectors where the utilization of machine learning and AI has come far and where cyber vulnerabilities and threats are really an issue. As this kind of analysis requires competence in many specific fields where we at the board don't have it ourselves, it was really important to engage experts in fields such as cybersecurity, software development, with more. Also, we were really happy to have Swedish regulatory bodies from each sector with us for quality assurance. And then to our main findings. Not surprisingly, we may conclude that digital innovation is really boosting trade. It's very true that machine learning and AI provide business with immense possibilities to develop new user cases, and also the unique opportunity to improve product properties all along throughout the product lifecycle. However, digital technologies may radically challenge our traditional trade policy frameworks. For example, the World Trade Organization TBT agreement asks regulators to base their regulation as far as possible on international standards and systems for conformity assessment. And for those companies that apply AI might not have or even want to use international standards, and or the certification systems that are to be used might be regional and not international. We can also say that the regulatory landscape has changed. Digital innovation really increases regulatory complexity. In the report, we compare the digital regulatory landscape in EU with a bowl of spaghetti, implying that even for regulatory professionals, it's currently extremely difficult to figure out where one regulation starts and where another takes over. It is very important for us to highlight that the purpose of this analysis was not to look for vulnerabilities and risk links to AI. However, our findings and results confirm that the use of digital product intelligence really broadens the regulatory concerns for industrial goods. By this I mean that regulatory compliance of today is not only about product safety, it's about cybersecurity, resilience and privacy. And this is a real huge change from the past. What is most notable here in context is that the ability to really control and monitor changes in the properties of digital goods has been significantly weakened. It's also clear for us that policymakers still base their regulatory proposals on a sector, while the innovation and its areas of use are limitless. We can also say that the complex supply chains are not sufficiently considered in technical regulation, and thus the ability to build security into the product from the start has really weakened. In terms of regulatory gaps and gray zones, the study was able to identify several cases of overlapping and conflicting regulations. It can also be confirmed that a good definition on AI is still not available. Also, that horizontal digital regulations are not necessarily adapted to sector-specific user cases. Further, the analysis shows that the access to and control of data represent important challenges for companies that apply AI. And another issue that we looked into, but not in a detail, but that we still want to highlight to decision maker is that there is a risk that regulatory parameters regarding product safety, cybersecurity, integrity and resilience are blurred when risks are defined in regulation. All these regulatory concerns can naturally affect parts of digital product. However, these are currently addressed in a multitude of approaches and various regulatory proposals, but not necessarily in a coordinated manner nor with clarity. As mentioned before, extensive and complex supply chains are a main challenge affecting traceability and auditability of digital products. Still, a multitude of proposals for new digital legal frameworks introduce complex producer responsibilities that cover the whole value chain and that are more or less impossible for companies themselves to verify. I think also that this, in a not too distant future, will become a real headache for market surveillance bodies. Here I really see that the conformity assessment community, as well as organizations responsible for legal metrology, could have a decisive role in creating better understanding of regulatory needs, as well as finding new toolboxes to support digital regulation. Before I finish, I would like to present some of our policy recommendations. First on our wish list is that decision makers could be a little bit more patient when it comes to digital regulation, both to address security and to address trade. There is a need to invest in more mature regulation, above all by creating better understanding among policymakers of the technologies used and their impact, also by analyzing the interrelations of various fields and by increased coordination. Furthermore, I think it's really a need to start thinking about regulatory impact assessment across sectors and issues, especially since a large part of digital innovation is really difficult to control. More focus is needed on the life cycle perspective in regulation as the characteristics of digital product change over time. We feel that regulators must find new ways to get better insight in the digital product properties by improved methods, what we call in the report by continuous compliance. Many persons have asked me if these recommendations really implies more control by market surveillance bodies throughout the product life cycle. No, this is not what we say and argue. We only wish to highlight that digital innovation poses challenges with respect to compliance and that the current regulatory tools and practices may not address in a clear and verifiable manner. Naturally here, new capabilities are needed in form of methods for traceability, auditability, verification in market surveillance and enforcement of product safety and security. This of course requires more resources. By these remarks and the short intervention, I really thank you for your interest and looking forward with my colleagues in Sweden to continue a dialogue in the area. I hope also that I have been able to increase your curiosity for the topic. Thank you so much.